Hi there, I'm the Saipan Sailor. In the last chapter, I caught the Cape Intrepid in Jacksonville. Now, for my time on the Cape Island, I was given one of these. This is the Merchant Marine Expeditionary Medal. Let me back up a little bit. On the front, there are two seahorses on each side of an anchor, right? And on the back, it says United States Merchant Marine, and there's the anchor in front of the shield. Now, the Maritime Administration was giving these out, and I didn't want one. I didn't feel like I deserved it. I mean, I wasn't in a war zone. But at the urging of a good friend of mine who was my neighbor in Ventura when I lived there, uh, he being a Vietnam veteran, a former Marine, he insisted and persisted until I finally just copied my discharges or scanned them, emailed them to the Maritime Administration, and they sent me a certificate. Now, I only used the discharges from the one ship. There were three other ships I was there on, but I did not send those discharges in. Some guys did. I just, one medal is just as good as three or four. I mean, like I said, I don't feel that I earned this, but I have it still. I'm the Saipan Sailor. This is part three of Iraqi freedom. I had an old hard drive from all those years ago, 20 years ago almost. And I was digging through it, and there are a ton of pictures and small video clips that I took. And there's also a few folders from pictures and clips that some of the troops gave me from the war zone. I can't publish them here. They are far too graphic. But what I did was I compiled a series of videos out of pictures and small movie clips. This one I will show you here is what took place on the Cape Intrepid. Now, I did make two different videos on the Cape Intrepid. One was about us, the crew, and the ship, and the other stops we made. We went from Jacksonville through Panama. We stopped in El Salvador. No one got ashore there. And then we stopped in Nicaragua. And then we went to Port Hueneme in Ventura County, where I used to live. Now, as I had mentioned, my father died in 2001, and his ashes were sent to me. So I gave them to a friend of mine in Ventura to hold on to. When we were in Port Hueneme, I called him up, and that was my opportunity to get my father's ashes from him. So when we left, I had his ashes on the ship, and I asked the captain if he could do a burial at sea, and he agreed. So while we were off the coast of Oregon, I buried my father the proper way. And that's what this video here I'm going to show you was about. It's a bit boring. I mean, you want to skip through it, that's fine, but I'm doing this in memory of him, and I thought this might be a good way to close out this series. Um, with a burial. My father was a World War II veteran, and now the video I made, the other video I made, there'll be a link to that in the description. I can't publish that here because there was background music, and I don't want to violate any copyright laws. But you can watch that video. Just go down to the description and click on that link. That should take you to my other channel where you can see it.
Kind of make a horseshoe coming. We all know why we're here. Anyway, I've never done this before, so if I mess it up, I hope everyone has a little patience with me. I tried to write something up so I could get my fellow shipmates gathered together on this Sabbath to pay homage to one of our dearly departed brothers. We have cause to pay tribute to is none other than Mr. William Joseph Rush, a beloved father, one of our own group, Mr. Robert Allen Rush. Bill Rush was not only a loving father, but a veteran of World War II. He earned 2 distinguished service ribbons while serving in both the European and Asian theaters. He began sailing with the United States Merchant Marine in 1947. My father. He completed tours during the Korean conflict, troop carriers. Mr. Rush continued sailing into the late 50s, ending up on the Great Lakes until his son was born, now standing there with us. I understand how Bill Rush might have felt at the time, as I now have a son of my own. I commend Mr. Rush for making his family the number one priority. Bill Rush worked as an SIU dispatcher for 22 years in Buffalo, New York, where he earned the nickname Buffalo Bill. He retired in 1985 and moved to Florida, continuing to live with the sea that he had grown to love. At this time, I would like Bob to share at least one memorable events that he was going to share.
Well, actually, this was a series of events that led up to what I did in 1988. I had a pretty wild youth, and I put my father through a lot, and up until the late 80s, our relationship was kind of on the rocks, and I wasn't on the best of terms with him. But I was tired of having the baggage, and that usually follows having issues with your parents, and so I decided to quit going to sea and go back to Florida where we lived, and live with him and try to patch up our relationship. And it took a lot of effort on my part, it took a lot of doing, and I ended up living with him for about 6 years. So in 1994, I decided to come back out to sea, and I'm making this real short. We sat down and we talked, and I started telling him, look, I started apologizing to him for not being a very good son, and I wanted to be a better son, and it went on, and we got kind of emotional, and he said, don't worry about it. He said, you've changed a lot since you've been here. I'm real proud of you, and you made me very happy. told him that I loved him, and keep in touch. And the day I left, I got into my friend's car, loaded my gear, gave him a big hug, told him I loved him again, and I saw him one time after that, before he died. That time, probably the most memorable time we've had together since I was a kid. And in fact, that day, I wanted to tell him, let's go out to the beach and just throw the football around and go swimming or whatever, like we used to do. We was much too old for that. So I took him out. We had lobster dinner, which was a tradition. Anytime I came home from the ship, I'd take him out and we'd have lobster. But you know, we became friends again that day. We weren't just father and son. I'm so grateful I was able to do that. Someone told me a long time ago, that's going to be an important thing in your life. It may not seem so at the time, but now it seems, now I know how important it is. That's basically all. That's basically all.
I have brought 2 good books. I will now recite the 23rd Psalm and pass it around and left so 2 people can share. Make me to lie down in green pastures, and lead me beside the still waters. Restores my soul, leadeth me into the path of righteousness, for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death,
thy staff they comfort me.
Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. And I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This isn't just a practical navigator. It's ship's property. It is stamped with the state steamship Arizona Jupiter. So this thing has been around. It's been on this ship since it came out. We'll talk about the currents in this area. What the ocean has. I think it's appropriate that it's somewhat influenced by the Kuroshio current, which is Japanese for black current, and West African black current. The Kuroshio, Japanese for black stream, is so named because of the dark color of its water. It is sometimes called the Japan Stream. In many respects, it's similar to the Gulf Stream of the Atlantic. Like that current, it carries large quantities of warm tropical water to higher latitudes. It curves towards the east as a major part of the general clockwise circulation of the northern hemisphere. As it does so, it widens and slows. A small part of it curves to the right to form a weak clockwise circulation west of the Hawaiian Islands. This major portion continues on between the Aleutians and the Hawaiian Islands, where it becomes known as the Pacific Current. As this current approaches the North Atlantic, the North American continent, most of it is deflected to the right to form a clockwise circulation between the west coast of North America and the Hawaiian Islands. A small part near the coast of the Atlantic. Can we all near the Ashen Pacific? We've done our best to make the lead, and it is going that way. So, you guys, watch yourselves here. We're hoping you can put it over the flag.
Wait for the wind to see the flag.
There she goes, she's going out.
Now I know what you're going to say, the audio really sucked. But we were up forward on the port side, right next to a blower, and that's where the captain wanted to do it, so no one else had any say in the matter. The point is, I was able to lay my father to rest, and that's how it went down. You know, the real, true merchant marine heroes are those men that sailed on the Liberty and the Victory ships during World War II. A lot of ships went down, taken down by German U-boats, and a lot of lives were lost. I believe it was last year, a film was released called Greyhound, starring Tom Hanks. They did a great job in that film, and there was great acting in it as well. So if you're interested in that time period, I highly recommend you watch that film. Well, that wraps it up for this series. If you're a veteran of any war, I want to thank you for your service, okay? You don't get enough credit. I'm the Saipan Sailor, and this is Chapter 3 of Iraqi Freedom. Calm seas and clear skies, everyone.